Redditors who work at remote places like forest officers, oil rig workers, etc. What creepy things have you noticed while at work? I've worked in Canada's north for a few years now in oil and gas. It's pretty creepy when during night shift you realize a moose has just been standing at the tree line staring you down for an unknown length of time. Or finding bear tracks crossing the tracks you just made 5 minutes ago. Honestly, the silence of a snowy forest in the dead of night 100s of km away from anything is pretty spooky. When your only contact to the outside world is a radio channel nobody's listening to. You feel pretty alone. I used to work in the Gulf of Mexico on oil rigs for years. And it may not exactly be creepy. But I found it really unsettling. In deep, open water. The water itself is really clear. So everyone can plainly see all the tuna and barracudas hanging around the rig waiting for the onboard cook to throw off whatever food waste he needs to. Every once in a while a huge great white shark would swim up from underneath and snatch a tuna, and it really took like less than a second. They're really scary. Working late at night on a remote mine site. Changing out a switch in a substation on the edge of the pit. Just me and a quiet room full of gently humming transformers. I finish up and head for the door and I see 3 pairs of red eyes staring through the window. Nothing else visible. Just blackness and 3 sets of red eyes. Turns out goat's eyes reflect red at night. And they like staring in windows. I used to do agricultural work. Alone in a field for 10 hours a day kind of thing. The pure amount of times I heard the sound of running and snapped up to see literally nothing there was horrific. I was convinced it was surely animals between the trees for a while, but the weirdest moment was when I heard it loudly from a row of trees next to me and immediately ducked under to see the feet of whatever animal was running by, and there was absolutely nothing. I remember trying to stay calm and walking really fast to the toilet block and sitting in there for a good long while before I came back. I never thought I'd be so freaked out in the daytime, but there wasn't a soul nearby for quite a way and it really amped up my imagination. In my brief stint as a rural health nurse, I was quite unnerved by how many of the families I worked with still practiced ritual animal sacrifice, even though on paper they identify as Catholic. We have a PTO pump spot that comes out of a canal for our rice fields. When I was like 12 years old, my uncle found 2 bodies dumped in the little sump area where our pump sat. Both of the ladies that were dumped there had the same tattoos, so they think it was gang related, but it was 45 minutes away from where that gang operated. I still look in the hole every time I go by there, and that was 20 years ago. Spent a summer in Wyoming going to BLM land and other remote locations collecting data on bats and herpetofauna. Heard a lot of weird noises like mountain lions screaming, deer snorting, what sounded like owls fighting. Woke up one morning to find 2 bull moose sleeping 20 yards behind my tent. All of this was part of the job until one night a truck was driving towards us when we were on a BLM square in the southwestern part of the state. The truck was going overland. No road and was slowly driving at us. It stopped about 100 yards away. Turned off the lights and we could see a person get out. They walked a full circle around us at 100 yards away. Got back in the truck and turned around. This was after dark and this shadowy figure did a complete circle around us. You could hear them walking through the sagebrush and I'm sure they could hear us talking. We packed up after that and drove to a hotel an hour away. I called the office and told them I was taking a gun when we went back out. Didn't like having the bear mace as our only defense. Edit. BLM stands for Bureau of Land Management. Some friends and I were fishing a small pond just after dark for catfish. We started to hear sounds coming off the water like someone throwing softball-sized rocks. But they were coming from all over the pond. We thought someone was messing with us and we called out a few times for them to stop. But we eventually got freaked out and left. Cut to a few years later. I'm fishing a different pond and hear the same sound. Turns out it was a beaver slapping its tail on the water to drive me from its territory. When beavers become problems in rivers, they relocate them to ponds in town. I've been locked inside a vast Gothic cathedral at night. Alone inside the structure practicing the pipe organ for a forthcoming recital. during thunder and lightning storms as I sat up high in the gallery at the console. Intense lightning flashes would cause the saints and other departed souls depicted in the stained glass windows to light up with such dramatic energy that it seemed as though they were about to step right out of the window and start roaming the cathedral nave. Even their stained glass jeweled eyes glowed with a fiery spirit of reality, as if they had resurrected at that very moment. Used to teach outdoor education, which was essentially just summer camp during the school year, and school groups would come up and spend a few days at the camp. On their last night we would always tell them a scary story around the campfire. It was the same scary story every time. We worked in partners, so there were always 2 staff members for every school group. One staff member would tell the story and the other staff member would go hide in the forest and make scary noises. So I'm telling the story and every few minutes there's like a snap of a twig or rustling in the bushes, and of course as always the kids all get freaked out and they start getting scared. It's very fun. Well, as I'm telling a story I'm walking around the campfire looking at all the kids' faces and I noticed a familiar one. My partner Eric. Sitting there smiling at me, wondering why I'm staring at him. My heart has never started beating so fast in my life. Eventually I sped through the story and all the kids left, and I explained to Eric that I thought it was him in the woods, and his eyes got very wide and he said, "Are you telling me that that wasn't one of the staff members?" So we both ran back to the main road. My parents live pretty far back in the country and have one neighboring house. The neighbors would let their basset hound outside for about 10 minutes to use the bathroom every morning. One morning they let him out, and he didn't come back inside. After a couple minutes they walked out to his favorite bathroom spot and found his head. Judging from the tracks, a mountain lion had ambushed him and apparently torn his head off before carrying the body away. What I thought was the creepiest part was that the family hadn't heard a sound. Edit. Fixed spelling of basset. I work for a medical examiner and used to be on the graveyard shift alone. The first night I was on at midnight on the dot, our air system shut off, which caused the vents to warp. That shit sounded like somebody running through the vents in the ceiling on all fours. Thankfully I got used to it lol, but def creepy at first. Another night we lost power and stupid me watching a horror movie, working so hard almost shit my pants when everything went dark, and knowing that a room with around 30 dead bodies in it was walking distance away. That one I stayed in my car for. Not to mention the constant long dark red lit hallways. Glad I'm not on overnight now. Edit. Thanks for the silver, kind stranger. My first silver on Reddit. It only took 5 years and lots of lurking. Look at me now, mom. My mom used to live in a small town in the Cascade Mountains and worked as a forest ranger. The creepiest thing that happened was when the oldest male ranger kept hitting on her and trying to get her to come home with him. Not very out of the ordinary. But many years later, after she left the town, she found out he had been convicted of manslaughter and had killed a young female ranger right before she got hired. She would have probably been his next target. My story isn't exactly what was asked for, but should be good padding while this post is so new. In middle school, I worked at the school during the summer, doing general painting and helping the maintenance guys. We had to drive out to the fuck of middle of a Floridian forest to pick up some pine lumber for the gym's new bleachers. And when we got to the mill at like 7 AM, the whole place was locked down with police. They had found gasoline cans and pill bottles out in one of the tree farm groves. Telltale signs of kids abusing substances. But supposedly the cops were there because they found human remains. I was pretty young and I don't remember anything outside of my little kid point of view. But I remember seeing streaks of dark blood running up the trunks of several pines. I've since learned from the guys I was with them that a teenager was killed by a bear after attacking it. And the blood was either from the wounded bear climbing the tree or dragging a hurt person up with it. But I'm sure many of you can agree with me that bears don't do that. And I can't see an injured bear making it up several pines in a row while bleeding that much. So, technically, I saw a creepy thing while at work in a remote area. Look up Lakeland Mill casualties or something to find it. The story of the kid's death was in the local paper. I worked in Japan and there was a playground that was close to where I worked. I worked in a remote location, so it was kind of odd. The Japanese workers would always talk about how the playground was haunted because a bunch of kids died there during World War II. One night on my way into work, I decided to stop at the playground to check it out. I noticed that the ambient air temperature in the playground was drastically colder when compared to what it was when I had the windows down driving. I stood still for a moment in the dark, just feeling the energy of the playground, and it was electric. I could feel my hair standing up. Maybe this was brought on by my imagination just giving me chills? On my way back to the car, I could hear one of the swings squeaking as if it was being used. We were wrapping up for the day in northern Canada. I am fueling up the side boom. I'm all by myself at this point cause I was tired of listening to the laborers whine of the cold, so I told them I would take care of the rest. Think bulldozer with no blade but a giant metal boom on the side that we use to raise and lower pipe. It's February, so pitch black. I keep hearing some weird sound. I can't quite hear it cause the pump is too loud. I search around a couple times and see nothing. I get in the truck and take off, drive past the front of the side boom to see a cougar sitting on top of a dirt pile 15 feet away. The damn thing was just watching me there and probably could have ended me without me even realizing it. I've never seen a cougar in the wild before, and it's hard to understand just how big they are and how powerful until you see one up close. That thing leaped off the 6-foot pile and probably didn't touch ground for 15-20 ft. It's terrifying to think something so big and powerful could just be sitting there deciding if they want to make you dinner. Used to be a supervisor for a janitorial company, and a couple times a week I had to go to a middle school and clean their hallway floors and gymnasium with a Zamboni type vehicle that mopped and scrubbed the floor. When I was there, I had the whole school to myself. Used to get finished quickly and go to the library and read while eating my dinner. Well, one morning after being there, I get a call from school security and they want me to come in. When I get there, I see a police car too. Oh, I think. They ask me a few questions like, did you notice anything out of the ordinary or strange while you were here last night? No, I hadn't. Usually have headphones in. Security then shows me camera footage of someone breaking into one of the classrooms while I was riding the Zamboni not far away. I was there for another 2 hours. Nothing was stolen. But the worst part was they didn't have footage of the person leaving. They didn't go out the way they came in. And police had to sweep the entire school. Never did find out what happened with that one. I'm a machinist and I was working by myself in this old warehouse at night. I would see stuff moving around and I would get creeper out. This is when ghost hunters became popular. So I started to ask questions. What's your name? Can you show me that I'm not alone? Seconds later, a 3-stroke 8 Allen wrench came bouncing across the shop and landed at my feet. It didn't fall off the machine, it slid. I was cutting micato, which is like wood. And you could see the slid marks in the chips. I said thank you to the ghost. Shut down and left. I never went back. I don't work out in the woods or anything, but me and my dad were hunting in the Poxonus. So me and my dad were sitting in a hunting tower. It was cold as balls out and we stopped hearing what sounded like one of those old religious chants where they sing all together in Latin while walking in a straight line. It kept getting closer till we saw movement at 20 meters ahead, and then we saw a group of at 10 to 30 people wearing all white holding candles, and then at 5 more people with rifles and shotguns standing in the front, the back and on the sides. We let them pass and they were staring at us as they walked by. It was scary as all hell. At 10 minutes after they walked by, we went over to where they were standing and it was snowy out there and there were 0 footsteps in the snow. Until this day we still don't know what the hell we saw that day. Edit. THX for all the upvotes. Actually, I don't work in remote places. But when my father was sent to Al-War, Rajasthan for archaeological study, I encountered a very strange thing. Our house was near a small forest. One morning I saw a group of blue bulls, a kind of Asian antelope. They were 5 in number. And they were running in circles around a skull for like 30 minutes, and then one of them took it into the forest and they all followed him silently. It was such a weirdo sight. It still gives me creeps. I work on large ships. If you get a clear view of a hall or passage that runs the whole length, You can actually see the whole ship warp and twist with the sea. If the passage isn't very well lit, it can look like a scene from a horror movie. I'm not sure this counts, but I'm a teacher at an urban public school and was at work late grading and getting ready for the next day. Time had kind of flown by, and before I knew it, it was 7 PM. I start packing up to leave in a building that is, in theory, locked and empty besides me, when our Alice alarm goes off, indicating an armed intruder in the building. I am 1. Alone 2. Young 3. Freaked AF because I am absolutely not ready to fight a gunman over my lesson plans. I book it out of the school and dive into my car, hearing the alarm blaring the entire time. I peel out the parking lot and can see in my rear view the alarm lights still flashing and debate never going back. Cause FCK that LMAO. Turns out they were doing routine maintenance and didn't send out an email to the teachers Nasarosa. I'm in the Navy and work on aircraft carriers. A girl sadly hung herself in one of the spaces right near where me and my shop slept. One person swore he saw her sitting in the chair as he was getting undressed one day and ran screaming out of the berthing. I waited about a week to go into the space where she hung herself, and when I did, I heard the loudest screeching noise I had ever heard in my life. I quickly turned around and got the FCK out of there. The system connected to where she slept didn't work at all for the next 2 weeks or so too. The systems break a lot, so it was pretty coincidental that it happened just as she did this. Mostly just a lot of tweaker bullshit. But there was a time when I was hiking in a wilderness area and saw a bunch of trash bags hidden under some trees about a quarter-mile off trail. About 10 miles from the nearest road. Noped out of there pretty quick. My biggest fear at work is finding a body in the woods. Not me, but a coworker. Used to work at a piggery. She said she would always see someone in the corner of her eyes. Boards would be written up like someone was checking on her sauce for her. Things cleaned up, like someone was helping her. Apparently she thought she was going mad and described seeing a dude around, and the others said, "Oh yeah, we think that he died a while back at home." All the staff had seen him but just sort of ignored it. I used to work for an IT company in the gaming industry whose office was in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by farms and forest. One day one of the development team had come in from a walk in the forest and was visibly upset. Turns out she came across a dead fox. The thing that was concerning is that she said it was hanging from a tree and looks like it was put there on purpose. So a bit later on, a few of us went down to have a look. We came across a small clearing with the dead fox hanging there. Upon closer inspection, we realized it had been hung by its neck, with an incision from its balls to its throat and all of its insides pulled out. Felt pretty sick from that one. We got it down from the branch and chucked it into the bushes, away from the path and clearing. Still to this day we have no idea how or why it was in that state.